For those who started in 2019, the onus was how do we become independent outside of Google and independent men first-party data. When I look at it in that sense, it's been coming. It's been slowly but surely that change was almost imminent. Focusing on the first-party data was something that we should have started doing back then. Now is the time you still focus on your first-party data, because the reality is privacy is something that is concerning. We need to address it. We've abused it a lot, and it is 100% right in terms of that direction, privacy first. 100% I do agree that is needed for an industry.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the $1 Trillion Ads podcast. With me is Timmy Bankole. Thank you, Timmy, for taking time. Welcome to the podcast. Maybe you could start by saying, how did you land up in advertising?
Okay, thank you very much for having me on. I remember getting an internship, I think back in the day, with what was shopping.com, eBay, again, donkey years ago, and pretty much started with eBay as a publisher and worked very closely with the commercial team and advertising team, and then went on from there to an exchange, and then exchange led to ad tech. And I think by the third job, I kind of realized this was essentially something that I really enjoyed, something that pretty much made me stay awake.
So, look, when we started this year, it was all about third-party cookies going away, and now it's not going away. So what do you think has fundamentally changed and fundamentally not changed as well?
I'd say probably for like 2 years, we got teased with this happening, right? You literally started doing a lot of work trying to understand whether you're a publisher, whether you're a brand, understanding most importantly, how does this affect me? And what would this mean for my business moving forward? The reality was the first change that happened was in 2019 when Safari made a move, right? So this was 2019. We already lost around like 10 to 20%. Then Firefox, I believe Firefox did similar in 21, which meant we lost like a certain portion. So in roughly about 30% was already gone ages ago. And we kind of just turned a blind eye, or in a way knew it was gone, but didn't really panic about it, right? For those who started in 2019, the onus was how do we become independent outside of Google and independent men first-party data, right? So when I look at it in that sense, it's been coming. It's been slowly but surely that change was almost imminent. Focusing on the first-party data was something that we should have started doing back then. In terms of what changed, I think what changed when this conversation started happening was people started understanding their ad technology a lot better. If you look at it from a publisher's perspective, you started understanding who my audience is, what value do I actually bring to my users, how much first-party data do I have, how much revenue do I actually make from direct access to programmatic in terms of open marketplaces. All of those things you start understanding a lot better. From a buyer's point of view, your concentration became, what does my attribution look like in the future? Because now I cannot tell how I justify my spends. So you start having a lot more clever conversations into who are the partners I work with? How do I narrow those partners down if technology cannot help me? So do I want to pick 2 or 3 partners? You also start looking at other channels like offline. How do I work with offline when it comes to footfall attribution? The reality with the announcement from Google is all of this was meant to happen in a very short time. Literally, we had 2 years as a window to change everything we've known pretty much about advertising. And for most of us, I'd say myself, I had zero faith in it getting pulled off. Because the reality is, privacy is something that is concerning. We need to address it. We've abused it a lot, and it is 100% right in terms of that direction, privacy first. 100% I do agree that is needed for an industry. Transparency, yes, we're all for it. And as a publisher, as a brand, you want to get closer to your end user. You need to start understanding how you do that in a very transparent way and compliant way. We should start focusing on, as an industry, going, it is going to come back. Whether it be another 2 years, it will still happen. where there would be a change. We're literally, again, biding time, and now is focus on what you have, put all your ducks in a row, and get ready for that change that will definitely happen.
Okay. So it is very difficult to collect first-party data as a news publisher because it's very tough to make people log in. People can wait for 5, 10 free articles but still not log in. So what is the secret sauce? Where do you stand on the ability of publishers, especially news sites, to collect this data itself?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one, right? Because as a consumer, I pretty much know Sky Sports. There's so many news sites that I subscribe, so many media outlets to start with. There's so many news sites that I subscribe to, and for me, the most important thing is what value am I getting? Why am I subscribing? Right. So there must be a value exchange between either the content and myself as an end user, and that is the key thing. The reality of the publishing world is the way people consume news is changing, right? So it's pretty much getting to understand, one, who actually values quality, and who is the individual behind that screen. Again, to your point, not everyone would want to pay for news, right? And not every news you should also pay for. There are things that affect our day-to-day that should be free to consume, but there's still a value in terms of making sure trusted journalism is safeguarded, right? My perspective is still being very inquisitive, and understanding that me relating to your brand, I'm still that same person who cares about your brand. Right now, in the context I'm in, yes, what I'm consuming may not be the brightest of news, right? But it doesn't change the fact that I still care about your brand, right? So when it comes to all of that side of things, I think it's a very interesting world where just using the blanket term news is unsafe because you have a general lens to look at stuff. When it comes to subscription, especially for publishers, my thing would always be back to what is the value you're bringing to that user, right? A user who would pay for free articles would pay. A user who would consume 10 articles for free and never pay, most likely would never pay. And that may not be down to the fact that he doesn't affiliate with the brand, may be down to the fact that he just cannot afford it, may be down to the fact that the reason he's consuming your particular part of news is something that he needs for a short period of time, right? So I think publishers in general need to kind of have a strategy around who are the core, who are those who literally advocate in terms of quality journalism and would always pay for quality, who are those who pretty much just are snacking, and how do I find a way to address this, right? Do I want people to pay for the content they consume and the content they consume alone? I think gone are those days where you can pretty much create, well, MFA, right? The likes of MFAs will struggle to get subscriptions, right? Because they are not made for content, right? They are pretty much made as a revenue business, if you want to call it that. If you go back in the day, we had things like rewarded ads. You get rewarded based on how many ads you watch, then that becomes a subscription model. So there are different ways that people can go around it and make that into a substantial model. I think for most publishers, my suggestion would pretty much be focus on who that audience is, focusing on that core, that the value that you add to them, and then everything falls in place.
And just to summarize, right? So first party data for a publisher, it could mean first party cookie where the user may be not logged in, and then it could be logged in through email but not paying, and then actually paying, right? So what should be a judicious mix, you think, of when we say first party data? Where do we, is it just, is 100% first party cookie enough, or it should be something more than that? But
I'd say your holy grail at this standpoint is you're always pushing for persistence, right? So persistent is essentially across every platform. I know who you are. You're not going to disappear like tomorrow, right? The things with, again, cookies, as good as they are, they're still not a solution for the future, in my opinion. They're still not, right? When you kind of go deep into when you're closer to that user, an easy way will be an email address, That's the easy way, and that's like the more common practice, right? When you want to go even a step deeper, you look at the relationship. Sorry, my phone number hasn't changed since I left the UK, and I still have the same number. And when I go back, I still use that number. So that's literally been with me. That's the relationship that I have with T-Mobile for a very long time, and that is a conversation. That's from a first party data point of view. You kind of want to get closer to those kind of relationships, right? Where you have that one-to-one relationship, but also a persistent relationship in terms of data. Like if you think of how often do you want to freely give out your phone number just for anything, right? So there's kind of like steps you take. You have like consuming this for free versus, okay, now I'm going to like sign in and give you my email address, and even me doing that as a person. And then you get to the step further going, wow, okay, now I'm going to pay for it. So they all kind of like feed into each other. And a good balance, if I'm being honest, is as a publisher, understanding that journey, going, right, Mr. A literally comes here every day and he consumes X and X and X a lot. And he does this, understanding that journey, how much time they spend, what do they consume, and then going, how do we push them through that funnel? I see that there are a lot of strategies. For example, I think it's the FT, and look like the different promotions they have, and like around different different time of days or different events. I think all of this, if I'm being honest, I still not subscribe, not because I don't want to, but it will take a lot more for me just to go, right, like I do understand the propositions, I do understand a lot of things, but I'm like, I still would get 60% of everything they're saying elsewhere that I pay for, and it makes up for that. And I'm getting to that point now, I'm like, okay, I've now got 4 that I pay for. Do I need a 5th? So you've also got to understand that there will be users in that same category who feel that way. I don't think you can ever get to 100% if I'm being honest, but you may get to a higher percentage being persistent. But I'd say if you're looking at it from a revenue standpoint, is how do I maximize every bit of the segment you're in, right? What's the value when you are just a cookie in terms of an anonymized cookie? What's the value when you are a first party cookie? What's the value when you've got a persistent, say, email address but not a subscriber? What's the value where I've got everything in terms of the perfect relationship? Yeah. Being able to create that value chain will be the success of the future publisher, in my opinion.
Sure. And once you get email, you could do a little more data enrichment, and you mentioned data clean rooms as a possibility, right? So do you think that that was were you part of any trials of data clean rooms, and did it really make an impact to the first party data strategy, or is it more for advertisers to get better attribution? Like there is enrichment for you as a publisher, and then there is attribution for advertisers, and both are possible through data clean rooms. So what's been your experience, or you have a viewpoint on that?
Yeah, I'd say like from what I've seen in the industry of late, right? Like I look at like data clean rooms, and they bring a lot of value, right? They are an intricate part to the future of advertising. And I use the word the future because, again, if you go back to the way we've been working previously, it's all been, especially when you talk about programmatic, right? Scale, always been seen as like, the bottom of the barrel. And with the likes of clean rooms, essentially, from a brand's perspective, yes, attribution becomes a lot cleaner. It becomes a one-to-one perspective. But from a data point of view, your partnerships can go beyond and wherever you want them to go. One thing as an industry, we talk about first party a lot. We talk about third party. We kind of never really talk about second party, right? And those clean rooms pretty much can help you with that, right? And you look at what partnerships you can create to create a decent second party, and then you can expand. If you're a publisher, you can go down that route. So it's not just about making sure you have precise targeting or precise attribution. It actually can help you build revenue models. From an advertiser perspective, you may not have to buy. You just want to understand insights, right? Just go, okay, I want to understand the overlap between X and B or X and Y. You just may want to be experimenting between, okay, I want to bring this product out to market. This guy did that 6 months ago. How did that work? And just understand, okay, what are the data sets? What are the audiences? How did that all work? So we're in an industry where I think we kind of, there are a lot of things we can do, and as with everything, there's like a lot of limitations, and there are a lot of hoops that need to be jumped. The reality now is, with Google taking the foot off the throttle, less conversation about clean rooms will be happening, which should not be the case. Everyone is like still involved, but like the urgency is kind of like, okay, now I can I can take a breather and like focus and focus on other stuff.
Yeah, so I think the data clean room, especially in Southeast Asia, and if I can add Hong Kong into Southeast Asia, it's probably in the parking lot, like you said. So do you also see publishers going back to the old DMP way of doing things with third-party cookies? Because it seems like that. Do you see that happening?
I don't really blame the publishers, though. I think, if I'm being honest, right, like from a publisher's perspective, you're creating content, you're having people to create content. You are spending a lot of money doing that. Either you're a small publisher, which is just you creating content. What you know how to do is to create content. A fancy guy comes in and goes, hey, I've got this technology that I can now tell you, or with third-party cookies, I can tell you which of the users are also dog lovers. Now you can sell them to the local the local shop next to you that sells pet food. As a publisher, like, yes, I'm going to do that. So for me, is less of the publishers going back to default, is more of the tech infrastructure still kind of like repackaging third-party cookies in a way that would still work. And to a small publisher, when someone gives you that as an offer and you don't have anything as your own infrastructure, you'd say yes, right? Because you just want to make more money.
Yep.
So you're going to go, yes, yes, yes. So I kind of don't really want to blame the everyday small publisher, because their focus and their core and their DNA has always been, how do I create content that I want my readers to enjoy? How do I get my readers to enjoy why they come to my domain? That's kind of like their core. And they kind of depend on us and like the tech, like the ad tech vendors, and like they depend on us to kind of go, this is the right strategy. But also there's a good balance, right? Like you want to make money. So you're not going to leave money on the table when you know you can make money.
Yeah, so long as there's a buyer, you are happy as a publisher to take that money. And I think that has been a challenge for publishers, right? They take the money which is available, and it's a fair strategy, right? But I think we spoke a lot about Google control on the cookie piece, but it's also true that you're dependent on Google a lot on the programmatic side for both demand. As an SSP, as a source of demand for DV360 from DV360, do you see that changing with the likes of the Trade Desk and others entering? Do you see a big change there, or in some way or the other, we are all still dependent on Google for both user traffic as well as monetization of advertising? Through the exchange, through programmatically.
Yeah, I'd say just quickly, just back on the previous point where we mentioned like publishers taking everything on the table, right? I think like, again, what happened with the conversation around Google shutting down cookies was a good time that publishers finally kind of went, you know what, this is our time to push back, right? So we're going to take a stance. We're going to focus on first-party data. So a lot of publishers started leaving money on the table. Like, we're not leaving money. It's like, this is not, there's no value add to me. I take this now, it would cost me in the future. I'm going to walk away from this. And publishers could start doing that back then, because finally things were falling in the favor of publishers. The moment brands were like, okay, we now need to know who we're working with as publishers, finally publishers were like, wow, now I want to talk directly to that brand. And the brands were like, I want to talk directly to the publisher. So finally, you can literally see, unmask everyone in the middle. If you think of how the model has always operated since day one, if you go back to ever using, DFP before then all the changes and stuff, we always knew it was a black box, right? It was always convenience. Convenience was your main alternative. It was literally your main secret. Your main drive was convenience. You look at today's world where you've got Magnite, you've got Pubmatic, you've got OpenX, you've got pretty much a a lot of partners that you can work with, again, very similar models. Most importantly, a very responsive business unit. Again, the industry as it is, right? We all love Google. We all love Google, right? We have this relationship where because they've dominated for so long, it's very frustrating. The reality is there's always been alternative partners. Working with alternative partners, and it's always been happening. You kind of pivot your business, and then now you're a buyer and you're a seller. So now you've got to play God as a buyer and also play God as a seller, knowing that your margin is also involved in both ways. The differences with Google or with Google is I can see what is happening underneath, right? I cannot query majority of the things depending on who you are as a pub, right? A small publisher, you're lucky if you're having an account manager. You're literally just getting paid. That is it.
Yeah.
So when
I was speaking to a publisher who was struggling with the free GAM account, right? There are publishers who struggle that on free GAM account, you just get so much. They have to go through a reseller in their market. It's so tough. Like I completely resonate with what you're saying. Yeah.
Like that's the best you're getting because that's the level at which you're operating in. And they're big, right? It's like, why I don't have enough resource to deal with everyone who's using my technology. And you look at other alternatives, right? And one of the things I was having conversations with how a few of the guys about Trade Desk, right? And you look at the numbers now and how much they've grown. And that was because at some point the industry went, you know what, we need someone else. And Trade Desk became that someone else and is still that someone else that's taking off and is literally in terms of the growth now with like CTV and the integrations they're making and literally the way they're making pathways for the industry. You're like, yeah, we want to spend with them. One, because we are part of that journey. Jesus Christ, I'm not going to go into how much restaurants people have to pay when you're working with Google. And there's nothing, you can't complain. They tell you that and it's like, okay, I'll revisit my plan in the next 3 years. And then next 3 years, maybe you get a 2% discount and you're like, yay. But that is what you get, right? Whereas when you are working with a partner, and in some cases, you may be what you class as a small publisher, but you're a big publisher to the tech vendors. Therefore, you can command what you think your rev share should be, right? So the powers of scale kind of change depending on where you are in terms of market and where you are in terms of the food chain. But I personally think that is changing now. There are a lot of conversations happening with publishers, a lot of conversations happening with buyers where the likes of like the Trade Desk, the likes of like Pubmatic and Magnite are getting a lot of share.
Sure. And I mean, all publishers invest in first-party data. They have a brand solutions team. You said now actually after 2021, advertisers actually want to know more about the publishers. There are seller-defined audiences. All of that is happening, and that's great. But it is still very tough to convince the advertiser, right? What are some suggestions, from your end?
Curation's the future. And I'm like, who's speaking? Because if I'm the publisher, I don't want curation. Because you've bundled me with A, B, C, D, and E. I'm getting a fraction. I want all of it. But you, as a buyer, you're like, well, I'm getting the best of all of the world. But every time you read curation, it's like curation is one of the best things that's happening. And you kind of go, from the industry's perspective, I get it. If I'm going to be selfish and put myself in a publisher shoe, I'm like, I don't want curation. I want all the money to myself. Right? So curation, publishers may not like it because they don't get all the revenue. Ad tech vendors, advertisers may like that. Publishers want to work directly with the brand. It sounds very easy to say. Your first hurdle could be something as simple as scale. The brand is not like, okay, I want to work directly with you, but I want to go global campaign. And you're like, oh no, I only operate in 4 geos. Straight away, you're out of that conversation. The reality is, gone are the days of you trying to be for everyone. You cannot be a publisher for every brand. Okay, this is who my audience is. This is what my content is. who does that align with? Okay, now based on that, I look on the advertising and brand side, I go fashion, I go jewelry, I go, okay, private jets. Like I literally create that segmentation at the top. I go, right, that. Then I can go, okay, what's the market spend in terms of revenue? Does that cover 100% of my revenue target? No, it doesn't. Right. How could I possibly maybe stretch a tiny bit to account for certain brands that are close to that? Pretty much all brands now understand return on investment is, well, they've always done, but now it's pretty much at the forefront of conversations you're having, where branding is key. Brands want to affiliate with partners that also understand their own value, right? Do you understand your own value? Okay, then I want to partner with you, right? The moment you're kind of lost in terms of who you are, then it's very difficult for you to convince a brand.
Yeah, great. And we started the conversation by saying publishers understand their content and their audiences, and that's what they love doing. But a lot of content is now also AI driven, and people start with perfect. There are newer ways of finding information through not just Google search but Perplexity and so on. I think it's still early days, but let's say, given your long experience in ad tech and in publishing, next 2 years, what do you think will change and what will not change?
There will still be a lot of conversations around first party data. That's definitely not going anywhere. That's still going to be something that we all focus on. There's going to be a lot of conversations about 360s. And 360s, we look at them as integrated media, connecting all your pies. So whether that be your social, literally connecting your whole portfolio as a publisher to create that 360. That's definitely a conversation that would start happening. Conversation that would stay would also be getting closer to understanding your users. What I'm hoping will change is for people to really sit there and think what these metrics actually mean before actually saying that is what we're going to pay as a value. Like, I'm all for metrics, right? The conversations around what value works for me as a brand is what is changing, right? And I see that coming more in the future, going, what ones literally resonate with me, what one resonates with the channel I'm buying from or buying through, and how do I put all of them together as a holistic plan and forge that into a strategy, right? Because as a big brand, you're probably buying across every possible channel. Not every metric and not every dollar is going to equate at the same return. It's like comparing, for example, search and programmatic in terms of conversions. This is the value that this adds, and sticking with that, I believe, is where we'll get into in the future. But again, bearing in mind, we're still having conversations about attribution that goes all the way back to first click today. We're still having conversations about how should we structure multi-touch attribution. Should it be that guy? Should we do it across everyone? So like, you look at data clean rooms, you look at the likes of IDs, for example, identifiers. Now, most people, in terms of publishers, are working with identifiers. Brands are also doing the same. Was it WPP and ID5 that came out together in terms of a partnership? So identity is also a key part where everyone, when it comes to data, everyone's trying to understand what side do we go on, right? How do we position ourselves to be ready for the future that is definitely going to happen? I think Bliss 2-3 days ago announced a massive partnership with Virgin Media O2 in terms of data collaboration. Huge. So there are lots of deals around data that are happening that are enriching the industry, making it a lot easier for brands to do attribution. It just all depends on the side you sit on. But most importantly, I think for me, one thing that definitely has to remain is a transparent and privacy-centric from an end-user standpoint. That has to be kind of like the ethos around everything we do moving forward.
Great. Thanks a lot, Timmy, for your time. I think that's pretty much my last question. And I feel like, you have covered a lot of points, and I just feel like the industry feels like a bit of a jungle, right? Whether you're the cheetah you still have to run. Whether you're the deer, you still have to run, right? It's something like that is how you've portrayed it. But it's been a very honest and frank portrayal of where we are as an industry. So thank you so much for that, and really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you for having me.